I think firstly, I just want to welcome you on Filme Shilmy because we've been connected for quite some time. I think since I watched Death of Dick Long at Sundance London, we've been connected. So to finally speak with you for an interview, I'm really, really glad that today was possible. So thank you.
Yeah, man, likewise.
Fabulous. Amazing. So I think also, firstly, a huge congratulations on Guilty Party, which will be aired on Paramount Plus as well. And from what I've heard that you're quite an erratic and darkly comical character in the series. So given that you've played a star like this previously in films like Death of Dick Long, I mean, what will be your approach this time as an actor for this role?
Well, each time, well, yeah, I'd say the characters are cut from a similar cloth, but they are different. You know what I mean? Well, I don't know. There's a few things. Like if you're known for doing something well, oftentimes that leads to doing more of that same thing or a similar thing again.
Yeah.
You know, and then as like, I don't know, artist or creative person, you know, I feel like most people, myself included, you're always like, I want it to be different. But you know, if it calls for these sort of similar attributes, then fair enough. But then it's a matter of like making. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing again. It's like, all right, well, if these characters are cut from the same cloth culturally or archetype wise or whatever you want to call it, like then it's just sort of like, oh, I can imagine these two different characters, like the one I played previously and this one, maybe being friends or getting along or sharing a similar like friend group. But this is the version of that guy in this region and this job, or you know, and trying to give them, you know, even if they kind of have a similar cadence or something like that, give them their own, you know, vernacular and their own, you know, like if you meet someone and you're like, oh, you would get along with my friend, you know, whatever, Jim, you know, and then, or you'd be like, oh, you guys are so similar, you guys might hate each other too.
Yeah,
but true. You know, the trick is to make them different. You know, before the Death of Dick Long, there's a character I did on my own called Jesse Miller, which the character from Death of Dick Long, it's not based on or anything, but that's sort of culturally where I pulled from, you know, or whatever you want to call it. And but I think like a dude like that, no matter if you're like in Riverside, California, or Florida, or Ohio, or you know, wherever, like a lot of people are like, oh, I know a dude like that, you know, especially in the US, there's always like a guy like that, you know. And there's variations, but I don't know. To answer your question, I try to make them as different as I can while staying true to what the character is calling for, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I guess also a project like you know, like Guilty Party, I'm sure it's probably a dream project for an actor as well, because it's got such a great cast and the concept seems so solid as well. So I guess it must be quite a big breakthrough, right, for you in many sorts.
Yeah, it's definitely nice. Well, as far as the character and the cast go, yeah, it's definitely fun. Like from what I've been shooting so far, it's been good to kind of, you know, I mean, the writing's good already, so that makes it a lot easier. But sort of let me perform the way I like to perform, which I think normally leads to better performances. But also then that goes back to your previous question, when people kind of like know what you can do and how you operate, and that's what they want, then you get to do more of that, which is another factor that makes it appealing. And then just sort of on a bigger level, yeah, it's really nice to be on a, you know, what will be a series regular on a show. Because I've done so many pilots in the past where you did the pilot and it did not go to series.
Yeah,
so just that alone is very refreshing, you know.
Absolutely. But I think also, Andre, there's so many, you're a man of many talents. I mean, you're a comedian, you're a director, a writer, producer, and visual artist as well. So when was the time where you kind of realized all these different skills and attributes to yourself as a creative?
I think, you know, like when you're a kid, you normally kind of, like when you're a little kid, you in most cases, I don't know, just in general, like, you know, your parents put you on different sports team or sign you up for different classes, or you're kind of always kind of being, you know, off and on, like, you know, like kids draw, you know, just whatever, like, here's an activity, see if you like it, you know, that kind of thing. And then, so I guess just artistically, I kind of just kept adding to that. So there was never sort of like one aha moment, like, oh, I do all these things. It was just sort of like, oh, I draw, I'll keep doing that. Oh, when I was little and we were like homeschooled for a period, it's like we started making videos with our video camera. It's like, oh, I like that. Never stopped. And in high school, took up like photography, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll just keep doing that. And then I don't know, these things just kept going, and I didn't stop. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It just kept being like what I was doing. And then, but there's definitely periods where I feel like more like one thing than another, you know, like I used to do a lot of street art and graffiti stuff too. And that has sort of a mentality of like, you know, like when someone stops doing something, you say, oh, they fell off. And then, so after a while, when I did sort of fade away from graffiti a while back, it's like I felt like I fell off.
Oh, wow.
You know, but then I'm also like, well, creatively, I'm still like painting, drawing, and I'm making TV now and doing all these other things and doing live shows.
Yeah.
So I didn't really fall off. I just moved that energy elsewhere. But I also think that sort of that idea of falling off was also kind of like a good motivator, even though it's kind of like wrong in some ways or whatever, like, or not accurate, but it's like, it's a good motivator to keep a little fire burning in you, which is, I don't know, whatever sort of my mentality anyway, but it helped reinforce it.
No, definitely. But I think, like you said, you know, because you do have so many different skills and so many abilities, does it ever get confusing for you? Do you always, is there a moment where you're just like, well, hold on a second, wait, what am I doing? Well, hold on. Like, do you ever feel like that sort of bafflement whenever you have so many different skills and attributes?
Yeah, I do actually. Sometimes I feel like, well, there's only so many hours in a day, you know, for creating and then getting, you know, whatever you need to get done, and then just relaxing as a human and enjoying yourself in addition to that. So there's sometimes where I feel like about every couple of years, two things. Every couple of years, I kind of have to do like a inventory of like, all right, all right, like I'll two things. Every 2 years, I'll probably get bored of a lot of things I'm working on, whether it's a genre or piece or whatever. And then I'll have to be like, all right, what can I be excited about again to work on? Also, like, if I keep doing all these things all the time, all at once, I'm probably not going to get as far along with any one thing as I'd like, you know?
Sure.
So sometimes I have to like consciously cut things back, you know, and then just sort of make space to do a better job with the ones I am spending time on.
Yeah, that's true. I think priority is always key, especially in any aspect of life, whether you are a creative or whether you are just a normal 9 to 5, you know, sort of working person. But I think onto a larger question that I wanted to ask you, I think in life, what sort of keeps you very positive and like sort of upbeat? Because from what I've like seen of your work and from what I know of you right now from this conversation, you do seem to be a very like chilled out person and very happy-go-lucky person. So what keeps you positive?
Keeps me positive. I mean, this year's been a bizarre one, obviously, for everyone, but I'd say friends for sure. Friends. I don't know. I'm close with my family, but I don't know. I laugh a lot. Like I don't know. Like so many things are just like stupid and absurd. Like I mean, even like tragically so. But like you're just kind of left with your own version of how you're going to digest it. So you just kind of either got to go, oh my God, that's so stupid, and start crying, or just go, oh my God, that's so stupid, and just start laughing. And then I normally choose the later, you know?
Yeah.
Not that like I'm some I don't know, someone who buries all their emotions away or something like that. It's just sort of like kind of what filter you're going to put it through. You're like, all right, this is stupid, you know, like, I don't know. Well, let's like a less extreme example. Just sort of like, let's say you stub your toe, or you know, or you bump into something. Of course, it hurts, or it's annoying, or embarrassing, or something. But you can spend all day being like, you know, annoyed or angry at some crack in the ground, or you can just laugh at the fact that you look dumb. And then like sometimes if I like trip in public or something like that, I'll honestly, if I find out no one saw me trip, I'll be kind of bummed, because I'll be like, not because I want to like be like, look at me, but just sort of like, oh, that was wasted. Like,
Yeah, I know,
like I would do
right?
that, and like no one even gets a laugh out of it. Well, that sucks. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it. It's like you don't want anyone to laugh at you, but then again, you kind of want that attention at the same time, and it's like it's a very weird confusion between the two. I totally get that.
Yeah. Well, you're just like, well, I just want to get my money's worth out of this, whatever just happened, at least, you know, at least I
You
could
know,
share that annoying experience with someone, you know, in some respect.
totally.
I'd say that's it. Like, I don't know, just look at how stupid and absurd most of the world is and then just try to laugh at it instead of cry.
Yeah. No, I agree absolutely. But I think that's a great way to kind of look at things. But I think so I was reading up actually, Andre, on you, and I believe you're from Ohio, and then obviously you moved to Los Angeles,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, right there, Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved to LA after I finished school. But Cincinnati, Ohio is where I'm from. It's like the southwest corner of it.
Oh wow, yes. And I think because obviously you have moved from one geographical location to another. In what way? I mean, are you the sort of person that sort of absorbs the surroundings around you and use that sort of absorption through your craft as well? Are you that sort of person who sort of identifies the different cultures and the different sort of atmospheres in the world around you? Would you describe yourself to be that sort of an artist?
Yeah, I guess I would. That's totally fair. I like to, because no matter where I go, I like to just go on long walks and I normally soak everything in. And a lot of my characters and stuff, or where I get a lot of ideas from, are basically from like people watching and just like, you know, overhearing a conversation at a restaurant or a snippet of someone saying something as they walk by me on the street, or, you know, like more like that, rather than, not that other artists don't influence me and stuff like that, but I'd say my biggest influence of like what I just do is just, you know, like, or at least definitely as far as characters go,
Mm,
just absorbing people around me. And that obviously changes from place to place. Like a lot of my stuff is rooted in sort of where I grew up, because, you know, anybody who spends any place the majority of the time or a long time or where they grew up is obviously going to have an influence on you, which you won't even notice until you leave, kind of, in a way. But it's yeah, I'd say yes to your question. I'd say that's
yeah.
definitely fair. And even like a large majority of my Instagram account is just like street photos of just like people that I find, you know, interesting or funny in some capacity or whatever, or, you know, that are sort of like, you
Yeah.
know, like it's like, you know, for like a fashion designer, like fabric swatches, it's like sort of like those are my swatches of like, you know, grabbing, you know, people or culture and sort of just put them in my little blender and be like, oh, that's a good note. That's a good note, you know,
Definitely. You know, I think
kind of
that
how that
that's
is.
exactly why that's why I kind of thought you would probably be that, because I saw your Instagram and I was like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. I love it. I think it's great, right? Because
Oh,
that's
thanks.
what helps you as an actor. Because like I guess like for example, I've seen a lot of your work and I think indie is a very special genre which is very close to you, right? Would you kind of say that indie is a genre which is most close to you because of the fact that you've kind of grown up in that sort of environment too, and you're familiar with that sort of culture and that surrounding as well?
I'd say so. I mean, you know, obviously indie film like is, you know, runs a huge spectrum, but yeah, I agree. Well, it's just sort of like by the nature of it, it lends itself to being able to do things on your own, which is, you know, I think where most people make stuff come from initially, you know, but then there's yeah, it's just more comfortable. It's more like it's more open to different ideas. But it's funny too, because I actually like really commercial stuff too, like a ton. Like I like a variety of things. I mean, and not just like the lame answer when someone goes, "Oh, I listen to all kinds of music." It's
Oh
like
yeah.
I really do like all kinds of movies. But that's certainly where I've found my place and sort of been more accepted or welcomed, I'd say, you know, like at
Yeah.
festivals and like, yeah, indie scene and stuff like that. It's sort of, I think also too, like with comedy, because I come from a comedy background, it's like I feel like in the same way it was in art school, was like in art school I was sort of too commercial and not artsy enough, and then in the commercial world I'm too artsy for the commercial stuff, and then comedy I'm too, you know, I don't know, there's a huge variety of comedy now and stuff too, so it's not totally fair to say that anymore, but like, but that's how it felt. And I felt like it wasn't until like I started having stuff in indie festivals that I really sort of found an audience that really seemed to consistently enjoy my stuff. Not entirely there, but that's where I certainly felt it in a more, I don't know, larger sense. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
You felt
Those are the people that like my stuff. Okay.
yeah, it's almost like you found your calling, your right calling as an
Yeah,
artist.
I felt, yeah, well, it just felt like with those crowds for the most part, it was like, okay, they get it. Oh, okay, that's nice. I
Yeah,
don't have
and
to like explain something or like beef something up or down, it's like,
absolutely. Even a film like Death of Dick
so,
Long as well. It was a type of film which I don't think many people quite understood, but the people who got it, like I got it. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't even think of a story
yeah,
like that or whatever happens like that. So it makes
right.
sense.
Yeah, definitely. And there's another movie I'm in called Relaxer that's definitely even more of one where like either I think people go, "Oh, that was awesome," and I really liked the way that kind of like played with the medium and tried something different, or people go, "Oh my God, that was, frustrating." But it's sort of like one or the other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's normally the case of trying something new, either people find it really refreshing or different or new or whatever, or they get put off by it. But
Yeah.
that's no one, nobody likes everything. I think in the most popular stuff on the planet, like Star Wars, there's still people who hate Star Wars. So what can you do?
Yeah, it's true. People still hate Harry Potter, believe it or not, and I get really
Right.
vexed by that. So I totally understand that. But I think also since we're talking about two, like you being drawn towards two, sort of extremes, so to speak. I mean, these are not really extremes, but like I've also noticed that in your body of work, no matter what it is that you've backed, be it as a producer, as an actor, or anything else, I've realized that there's always a tinge of darkness attached with comedy in your works as well.
Yeah.
Um, do you in life kind of also face a contrast of this nature as well, where you're sort of drawn between this darkness and comedy as well? And is that what sort of helps you to kind of bring that essence through your work as well?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I'd say it's yeah. I don't think I make a conscious effort to do that. It's just sort of, I guess, sort of maybe going back to your question of kind of like what I find funny in life and in general is just sort of like, finding. I don't know. I guess I do find comedy a lot more in moments or characters in combination with a moment rather than just sort of a straight up like joke or a parody, which I've done before and kind of enjoy those things too. But in general, I normally try to make everything like just really grounded. So the smaller the nuances will pop bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that leads to sort of answering the question you have of like sort of the sort of the comedy and darkness is I find that like when you make stuff more grounded, it just feels more real, which sometimes is dark or just maybe feel that way. And then that way you can point out and make fun of more of the absurdity of actual life rather than sort of a fictional life that you then make fun of. I hope I'm
Yeah.
articulating this well. Yeah.
No, I get
But
what you mean. I get what you mean.
I think that's where it comes from rather than saying consciously, I want to do something dark and make fun of it. It's just sort of like, oh, that thing sucks. Oh, I hate when that happens. Let's talk about that.
It makes sense. It makes sense, right? And I think that's why they say comedy is subjective, because obviously what I might find amusing, you might not find
Yeah.
amusing. But I mean, is there
Mhm.
ever a time for you as an actor or as a comedian where you can actually kind of, I guess, preempt and predict maybe what might make the audience laugh? Is there ever a moment like that where you kind of think that, oh, okay, this could work or this could not work?
Yeah. I mean, there's always exceptions, but I think in general, when you try a thing a few times and consistently it sort of works. Well, I mean, there's different areas like live shows. There's jokes that can kill one time and then totally fall dead the next, but you'll still notice the ones that sort of hit more often than not. And then, it's just funny ways too of like funny ways too of just phrasing things that you're like, oh, I know that normally gets to laugh when I enunciate this that way. I don't know. It can be really small to just like a big sweeping joke or a big idea. Yeah, I'd say more times than not you can, but you can never fully. That'd be the short answer to that question. And then also comedy's so funny. It's like, like we're saying, like, if I base like a character or a joke off of like a region or something that's essentially sort of like a large scale inside joke, when you go somewhere else, other people might not be familiar with the reference, just as simple as that. So it's just like the joke doesn't land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and you're like, oh, right. Dang, if you were familiar with what I was talking about, you'd be laughing, but you're not. So that's on me.
Yeah, no,
So there's that kind of thing. It's kind of finding that balance of, because also when I think when you're trying to make something grounded, you speak in particulars rather than generics. And then when you're speaking in particulars, I think it makes it feel more real and relatable in a lot of ways, but it also runs the risk of people not knowing the reference and just missing the joke. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And it's very embarrassing when people miss the joke, especially when you worked hard on it. And I know best how that feels. Quite a few times I've had that experience.
Yeah.
So
And it
also,
could be something as simple as saying something like, "Oh, you spilled your Sprite," versus like, "Oh, you spilled your soda." You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm not to say that, "Oh, that's hilarious, you said Sprite," but just saying something like particular like that is,
yeah.
I often find gets more of a laugh if people do know the reference versus they don't. But I guess you got to still say it in a way where people will still know what you're talking about, speaking in generics and particulars at the same time. I don't know, because you just don't know what the audience is going to be, you know. You can guess.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely spot on there. But I think, Andre, whenever I speak with actors or creatives, I always, wonder what their ambitions were when they sort of set out on the journey that they have within the industry. Um, so when you were breaking through, what was your vision like as an artist? What did you want to achieve, and have those sort of goals changed throughout your journey?
Yeah, I feel like they're constant. They're kind of always the same, but also constantly changing. I mean, there's that sort of, what is that expression or phrase? Or I'm going to say it wrong, but something that like, your goals or dreams or whatever you want to call them might come true, but they're not going to come in the shape that you probably thought they would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I find that to be very true. Yeah. So I'd say they're constantly changing, but when I don't know. It was just like I was saying when I was a kid, I just kept doing these things and kind of never stopped. It was just sort of a difference between keep doing them to when people like, outside of your friends or family enjoyed them. And you're like, oh, okay, people do enjoy this beyond just sort of my circle of support or whatever you want to call it. And then being like, okay, I keep doing that. And then more people want you to do it for them. And then you get paid to do it. And you hopefully get paid well to do it, and that's always been a battle. But it's, I remember actually someone asking me kind of pretty much the same question in college. And the best way I phrased it, and I think it still holds true, was like, I said, I want to make a good living off of my creative endeavors. Because that was like the only way I could really describe it, and,
Sure.
like, let's say I'm doing 5 different things. If one of those 5 things is paying to support all the others, that's great. It doesn't have to need to be all of them. It just needs to be my life.
Yeah.
And, and to be able to do the things that I've done, it's also, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that I've done that's been rejected or went nowhere as well. So it's I think a big part of being able to, I mean, there's still plenty more I want to achieve, but like, just surrounding yourself by, and not in a devious way, but just in a truly way of wanting to spend time with other people that, like friends who are equally creative or motivated or passionate, not necessarily career wise, but just whatever they're doing. I think it's infectious and motivates me, and then, and helps with projects, because like a lot of stuff I've done has been like low to no budget. And I couldn't have achieved those things if I hadn't had like the support of friends and other collaborators, helping me along the way. Even if I was carrying most of the weight on my shoulders of whatever the project was, like all those other favors being thrown in and help make it happen. Sorry, I'm kind of on a tangent now, but anyway, I got it. That's the gist.
Yeah, no, I definitely know. I completely understand that. But because you mentioned there's so much more you want to achieve, and rejection. I think those two are very important topics I would like to address actually for this interview. I mean, how do you deal with rejection? And was there one time that rejection really hit you hard, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I don't know. It comes in so many different forms. There's like basic ones, like, you pitch a show and you just, no one wants it. And you're like, all right, great. Like that certainly happened. Or you an audition and you just don't hear back and you're just like, all right, well, it's always a bummer because you always want to be kind of like moving forward with these things, but I don't know. Like well, with pitches, it's different because that's like my creation. And that can be more frustrating because you're like, just let me do it. How many times do I got to describe this thing? Like, you say you like all my stuff, then just trust me, blah, blah, blah. I know those people you meet with got to meet with other people and convince them. And it's all chain of garbage. That's more annoying because there's just way more homework involved with the pitch. You have to work on it so much longer. It can be, something you came up with quick, but typically it's something you've been kicking around and working on for like 6 months to a year, more or less. So that's more just like frustrating, and you're just like, and then an audition, there's so many varieties of auditions, and some you're like, well, I'm going to do my take on and give it the best shot. And there's so much out of my control that I'm not that salty if I don't get it. But then of course there's a couple where that you really do want, but the rejection that normally comes more is like making a pilot than not getting picked up, where I feel it more, where it's more like, like they dangled the carrot so close and I didn't get to happen, or an audition where you get a few different steps into it, that sort of thing, or, where it's just sort of closer, bittersweet situations, I'd say, are the ones that are more frustrating, but where they actually dangle some hope, but the way I deal with it, varying on what it is, like I'll consciously give myself a day or a weekend or whatever to be like, all right, I'm allowed to be pissed off and disappointed about that for the next 1 to 3 days. And then after that, I just got to get on with it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's normally like the longer ones. Like there was something recently that I was kind of just diced out of, and it was very frustrating because I was excited about being in it. And, after a while you're just like, well, I got to think about it this way. There's a million other shows and movies that I'd like to be in that I'm not. And this one, I was in a dash more than those. So,
wow. I mean,
there's so many things you can't control that allow yourself to be pissed off about it, but for amount of time. Like if I'm watching like a Bengals game and they lose so many games, I'm like, well, I don't know. That team has been so frustrating for so long. Just like, it's like, whatever, I'm not even upset anymore, but like, if like a team you like loses, you're just like, all right, well, part of the fun of watching a team is when they do well, it feels exciting, and when they lose, you're annoyed. But don't give being annoyed longer than a half hour. It's just entertainment. It's just whatever. It's out of your control. Who cares?
Right.
Even if you do care, you got to look at it like, who cares? I don't know. That's kind of how I deal with it. There's certain things that piss you off longer, but in general, it's sort of like, all right, give myself a day to be annoyed, and then you move on.
Yes, you have to kind of come out of it at some point, right? And I definitely agree with that whole explanation that you gave about rejection. But I think what's great about you is the fact that you've worked a lot on a few independent works. And nowadays, I feel like independent cinema has kind of taken off now, and it's getting a lot of traction due to the emergence of digital platforms like Netflix and Amazon. So I mean, given your experience, because your films have always been Sundance favorites, your contents have always been favorites at Sundance. I mean, how important is it to have the backing of such major outlets? I mean, not even just the digital, but even like A24, who came on for Death of Ding Plong as well. So how important is it to have the support of these big outlets?
I think whenever you can sort of be endorsed or accepted by something that I have respect for, or not just me, but like is respected at large and seen as like a quality of whatever it is, that's never not a good thing, And I think A24 and Sundance are definitely quality, quality brands or names or whatever you're going to call it. So of course that helps, because then any, other people who are into the similar things go, oh, okay. It's kind of like a seal of approval, oh, that's, I trust that, and that's the best way of saying that. So it is important because it can open up other opportunities. It's funny because it doesn't make your work any better or worse, but it puts a public seal of approval on it, where more people will take a chance on yours, because it's like being a guest MC on someone's show, being like, oh, they're having them on their show, so I'll give them a shot. It's that kind of thing. It's a really good, nice endorsement on a bigger scale. And so it's always good and always important. And, you know, ironically, a while ago, before I got anything into Sundance, I wouldn't have thought Sundance would be into my stuff, just because I was like, oh, I do like comedy stuff. And I think, you know, like not even in a dismissive way, just sort of like, oh, I don't think I'm on their radar. It would just be like, yeah, why don't I make something for ESPN? It's like, I don't think what I do is on their radar. That was certainly an ignorant thought of mine, because it's worked out really great, you know, for the most part, or, you know, over the years. So, but that's comes back to just, you know, trial and error of whatever you're doing and trying different things. And then going, oh, no, this is a good move. This is a good place to be.
That's a good.
But it's also, yeah, and it's also out of my control. I can't say, hey, put me in the festival. It's also like one of a million things where, you know, it worked out, you know, so I don't know.
No, absolutely. No, I think you're very right. But I think this trial and error, and I think this sort of niche, I don't want to say niche in the actual meaning of niche, but I think this sort of area that you managed to capture, I think, Andre, has been incredible. And I think I think watching your performances has kind of made me like the indie genre as well. I love basically the sort of work that you've done. And I think kudos goes to you for doing that. And like you said, doing the trial and error and getting that. But I think on a final note, Andre, before I let you go, we were talking earlier about achievements, and you said that you still have a lot more to achieve. So as having explored yourself now vastly over the years as a creative, what do you now see as a milestone? Is there anything that you have on your bucket list that you really would like to achieve?
I really like to achieve. Well, it's funny. Going into this year, not even a joke, like in January, you know, like, I don't know, like a lot of people, I don't know, some people might think this is corny, but I do like to make resolutions and also circle back to things I'm trying to do each year. So actually, like January 1st, I actually wrote like I'd like to be a regular on a streaming series, and then like a month later I became that, which is crazy. But I don't know. So I really do care about goals and setting them, because I think it just focus on what you want rather than being like, I'll do everything. You know, it's like, because if you say I want to do just this one thing, you'll probably end up doing everything on your path to get it anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah. But goals still left. I mean, I really want to direct my next feature, and I would like to do it with a larger budget. That doesn't sound like too wild. I mean, it's difficult, but like it's just stuff like that. It's like I kind of want to keep doing the things I'm doing, but have them grow to a larger. That doesn't fit. I'd rather do that, you know, or whatever. It's just sort of feeling things out. But you know, I've done stuff with budgets. Normally it comes more in TV than in the film experiences I've had as far as being a director. But you know, the lack of budget always breeds more freedom. So there's always that, but it's also like, I'd like to learn from what I did and add a little more money to it, so I can do a few more things, make life a little easier. And also, you know, people that have done me favors in the past, you know, pay them more, you know, just that kind of thing, kind of keep the train rolling, but a little healthier, you know, because it's like when I made the fourth, you know, it's like almost like taking a year off of doing anything else for yourself. And I was really happy to make the film, don't get me wrong, and I would do it again. It's just sort of like, all right, well, I've been through that. I can't ignorantly go through it again, because at least the first time I did like a bigger project like that, I could naively just go, okay, gotta get over this hurdle. And then when you finish it, you're like, oh, you know, I haven't, you know, whatever, like sort of, you know, fed my life at large with anything else other than this the past 6 months. So like, how do I do this and not make my life so difficult in the process too, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of speaking in generalities, but just sort of how do I keep doing the thing I'm doing and get to do more of it and make my life a little easier while I do it, you know?
Wonderful. Yeah, but I think like you said, I think the fact that you manifested it and it happened so quickly, I think that's just a testament to how things are quickly changing for you and how things are looking quite brightly for you. And I think with a project like Guilty Party on Paramount Plus, I'm definitely very much looking forward to seeing that. And I think even to see more from you as well, Andre, I think it'll just be a matter of pride, I think, for me just to see you explore yourself more and do some more great work. So I wish you all the very best for that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's nice.
Lovely. Well, Andre, thank you so much for taking the time out to join me on Filme Shilmy. It was so lovely to chat with you, and can't wait to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, man, I'm down. I'm down for that.
Amazing. Wonderful.
Thanks so much, man.